we will be tackle all about defining the learning experience. The capability to learn is essential to biological existence. It allows organisms to adapt to particular features of their environment to profit for their own experiences. For us humans, learning is very important. Think of the difficulty of an individual would have if they forced to go through life equipped only the abilities they inherited at birth. It's so very difficult for me too. If that were the case, people are just a simple human being. Can't walk, can't run, can't dance or sing, or just they can't do the things that a modern human can do today. But guys, take note that abilities, the stable enduring traits that for most parts are genetically determined and that underlie a person's skill in a variety of tasks. In many ways, human learning seems to occur continuously, as if everything we do generates knowledge and experiences. In Chapter 1, modern learning was defined as the changes associated with practice or experiences, in internal processes that determine a person's capability for producing a motor skill. Throughout Part 3, refer to those situations as learning experiences. Take note, guys, that learning experiences is a situation in which people make deliberate attempts to improve their performance of a particular movement or action. In addition to the topic about the learning experiences, we have this common saying that try and try until you succeed. In every challenges that we face, if we make mistakes, it is a lesson for us. Every champion is achievement, every lose is a lesson. Before I end the introduction, take note, guys, that the learning experiences is an interaction between the instructor and the learner that should focus only on the achievements of the learner's goals.
Goals allow you to focus, whereas a life reason gives you a general direction. So, do you set goals for yourself? Goal setting. Goal setting is the process of establishing targets for performance. According to Locke and Latham, it has been used successfully in many environments, particularly in business and in industry. It has strong implication for skill learning in other instructional settings. So when goals satisfies the criteria, they can increase the quality of people learning experience. So according to TABS 1986, goal setting is highly individual matter. One person's goals are likely differing from those of one another. When learners set goals, they are more committed to goal achievement, and they usually have a better understanding of the purpose of various learning activities. Outcome goal. It is emphasizing the result of performance and often involved comparison with other people's performances. Example for this is beating a friend in tennis, winning a conference championship, and leading the leg in a field goal percentage. The problem with this kind of goal, however, is that it is an outcome over which people often control. Is example, a gymnast could perform her best ever and still finish third. Therefore, learners should set two other types of goal as well. Next is performance goal. Target for performance that focuses on improving some aspects of performance. It focuses on person improvement relative to his or own past performance. So an example for this is a basketball player goal of increasing his free throw percentage from 70% to 75%. In playing volleyball, our outcome goal is to win the conference title, while our performance goal is to improve blocking percentage from 40% to 50%. And lastly, the process goal is to penetrate the plane of the net on the blocking attempt. And another example is playing piano. The outcome goal is to have an error-free performance. The performance goal is proper hand and finger alignment in order to achieve the outcome goal. And process goal is a regional piano competition. Lastly, the process goals. Target for performance that focus on equality of movement production. It emphasizes the particular aspects of skill execution. An example for this is pumping the arms while running the 100-meter dash. leading the healthy leg when walking up a flight of stairs with crutches, or scanning traffic efficiently when driving a truck. A tennis player may set an outcome goal of winning 2 out of 3 sets in tennis match, a performance goal of improving his first serve percentage from 50% to 60%, and a process goal of focusing his eyes on the seam of the ball every time he serves. As we have already suggested, a vital advantage of goal setting is that it permits individuals to recognize the skill they need to develop during their learning encounters. For some reason, we call these abilities our target skills. So Santi is up. She will discuss and tackle about the target skills.
Target skills are the actual tasks people need to acquire to achieve goals. When we talk about target skills, it refers to the skill of a person who wishes to be able to perform. For example, keeping a tennis ball in a play or performing the proper steps in a dance routine. On the other hand, target behaviors refers to the action must be able to produce to perform target skills successfully in the target context. Once movement practitioners identify the relevant target skills that needed to be learned, they must determine the observable target behaviors associated with the successful performance of those skills. For example, for the tennis ground stroke, target might include a visual focus on the ball, early racket preparation, and a smooth follow-through after the ball contact. During instruction, effective practitioners encourages learners to focus on one or more of these behaviors until it becomes a consistent characteristics of the player's performance. Aside from that, we're going to talk about target context. Target context refers to the environmental context in which people want to be able to perform a skill or skills. The target context for a tennis player might be highly competitive tournament. For a truck driver, it might be driving very late at night on an open roads. And the target context for a stroke patient is learning to feed himself with his non-preferred hand, might be at home in the presence of concerned family. To summarize the three, which are the target skills, target behavior, and the target context, here is an example. In playing basketball, for target skills, he must have an effective rebounding technique. For target behavior, he must use his body to block out opponent on each shot. And for the target context, he must join a junior varsity basketball game. As a conclusion, encouraging learners to follow sound goal-setting principles, practitioners should be able to determine a person's intended destination. Then, they can assist the learner in identifying the target skills and behaviors necessary for goal achievement. Always remember the 4 key elements of successful goal setting by remembering the acronym formed by the first letter of each word. CARS. C for challenging, A for attainable, R for realistic, and S for specific. Another concept for practitioners to consider aside from goal setting in preparing to offer instructional assistance is transfer of learning. When we talk about transfer of learning, it refers to the gain or the loss of person's proficiency on one task because of previous practice or experience on another task. For example, in experiments on transfer of learning, researchers attempt to determine the influence of prior experiences on people's performances of a new task. Researchers do this by using an experimental design in which some participants practice an initial task before attempting second task. A control group received no experience on the initial task and attempts only on the second task. It is a positive transfer if prior experience on the initial task is beneficial compared with the control group for the second task performance and it presumed to have occurred. And it is a negative transfer if the prior experience is detrimental or has no influence or there is no transfer respectively is assumed. Sometimes it can be difficult to see the real-world applications of transfer of learning. However, several aspects of transfer of learning are particularly relevant for practitioners. Perhaps the most important deals with the relationship between what the person learns during practice sessions and what the person can do when required to perform the skill in the target context. Now we're going to move on and tackle about locus of control in goal setting. One factor to keep in mind when deciding whether learners' input during goal setting is locus of control. According to Rotter 1954, people with an internal locus of control perceive that they are in control of what happens, whereas those with persons with external locus of control perceive that some outside source, for example, a coach or a teacher, is in control. Research suggests that compared with performers with an external locus of control, those with an internal locus of control demonstrate more persistent practice behaviors when they input in the goal-setting process than when they don't. Moreover, the opposite seems to be true for performers with an external locus of control. Example is the study of Lambert, Moore, and Dixon 99 in a young female gymnast. They found out that gymnasts with an internal locus of control spent more time on the beam when they were given the opportunity to set their own goals, whereas gymnasts with an external locus of control demonstrated more on beam behavior when the coach set the goals. Moving on, a second aspect of transfer concepts concerns the potential impact of foundational motor learning or so-called fundamental movement patterns on the performance and learning of other skills. In the following, I'll discuss each of the practical application of transfer of learning in more details. First is the generalization. When we talk about generalization, it is a type of transfer of learning that occurs from one task or situation to a very similar task or situation. Generalization deals with the transfer of skilled performance from the instructional setting to a particular target context. For example, is an athletic contest, a piano recital, a construction site, or for the therapy patient at home. In some cases, this means that the performer adapts the target skills to meet the demands of another situation, such as when the basketball player puts more art on the jump shot he has learned in order to clear the outstretched arm of a taller defender during a game.
Second is near transfer. Near transfer is a type of transfer of learning that occurs from one task or situation to another similar task or situation, also referred to as generalization. So an example to near transfer is when the therapy patient with a prosthesis picks up an object in a home after learning how to pick a similar object in a clinical setting. In short, near transfers means that the performer produces essentially the same movement he has been practicing all day, all along, but does it under a different set of environment condition. Another way practitioner can apply the transfer notion is when helping learner develop more general capabilities for producing a wide variety of action in the future, sometimes referred to as a far transfer. So what is far transfer? Far transfer is a type of transfer of learning that occurs from one task or situation to another way different task or situation. The best known technique for developing far transfer is the movement education approach that many elementary school teachers uses. Instructors who use this method encourage children to attempt variety of fundamental movement activity such as throwing, jumping, running, and skating. So according to movement education advocates, children who learn these basic skills are better prepared to perform them in a context of future activities that involves this movement in some ways. So for example, throwing is an important foundational for basketball pitching and tennis serving. Jumping is essential for hurdling and playing basketball. Running is needed for soccer and football, and skating is a prerequisite for ice hockey and ice dancing. Still, another application of transfer of learning concerned the simplification of skill practice to make a difficult task easier to practice initially and subsequent transfer to whole task performance. So an example for this is relatively long duration serial skills such as certain gymnastic routine might be broken down initially into shorter elements for practice. Before deciding to do this, practitioners should consider whether having a learner practice parts of tasks in isolation is going to be beneficial when it's time for the person to perform the whole task.
For Lesson 2 of Unit 1, we will tackle about the learners. They are the central figure in every learning experience. To create the most effective learning experiences, movement practitioners must be aware of some of the important characteristics of learners. These include a person's motivation, abilities, past experiences, and lastly, the present stage of learning. Let's talk first about motivation. According to Deci and Ryan 1985, anyone who has attempted to teach someone will testify that the key ingredient for productive learning is the learner's motivation. In short, those who are highly motivated individuals show greater effort and are more conscientious during practice. When we say conscientious, they are this meticulous listener who pays attention to all the information being given, while those people who lack motivation are those who do not do their best and give up for a short period. Modern learning's general context is achievement-oriented. Achievement-oriented individuals have the drive and passion to accomplish, excel, and be successful with their goals. They are most likely to strive harder, improve, and be more efficient to see results and do better than others. And to do all, it is reasonable to presume that the learner's motivation plays an essential role in achieving their goals. There is this term, achievement motivation. It is defined as the direction and intensity of a person's effort to reach a performance goal, either for personal mastery or for demonstrating superior competence compared with other performers. It is where an individual is driven by his or her motivation to attain success. Let's say, for example, an athlete or dancer who is highly motivated shows interest not only to know a certain skill or genre, rather, he or she learns how to develop their skills and execute it properly, even though it takes a lot of time. Unfortunately, there are instances wherein the learners are less motivated. It may be because they can see the personal relevance of the activity or they are discouraged by their physical condition. However, there are ways to enhance their motivation, and that is to involve them in goal setting. Because the more the learner feels successful about his or her goal achievement, he or she have the best chance to remain motivated to learn all the time. If a learner is highly motivated, he or she will put his or her time and effort necessary to improve himself and achieve the goal of being successful. And that's what makes motivation as an important characteristic of learners for an effective learning experiences to happen. The next characteristic will be the past experiences of a learner, to be tackled by Jamie Rose.
Let's proceed now to past experiences, another way to look at transfer of learning. It is considered the influence of people's previous movement experiences on their learning of target skills. If person experience include the learning task containing motor, perceptual, and conceptual elements similar to ones constituting the target skills, the practitioner can emphasize those similarities when providing instructional assistance. The essence of this is that every task we experience share a great number of similarities to elements that will transfer from one to another. Under this way to look at transfer of learning, there are three elements that constitute the target skills. These are the movement elements, perceptual elements, and conceptual elements. So first is movement elements. It is an aspect that deal with the fundamental patterns or action associated with correct performance. For example, if you already have an experience in casting fishing lure, you could also do the throwing of baseball and target skills. because these two activities involve similar movement patterns that reminds learners from past experiences. Next is perceptual elements. It deals with the environmental or movement informations that lead to correct performance. It is a task-related stimuli that people must be able to interpret to achieve successful performances. For example, the racket and paddle ball that requires accurate perception of speed and special trajectory as the ball rebounded on the floor. With this, you can promote transfer of learning by calling the learner's attention to previous experiences that they have experienced which contain perceptual elements. Lastly, the third element is the conceptual elements that deals in rules, principles, guidelines, or strategies in performing. It is to maintain narrow focus on the target and the important principle when performing an activity. For example, in baseball and softball, there are similar rules in playing such game, while in rugby, soccer, and hockey, there are similar strategy elements in controlling or defending an area. As the level of skills improve, the greater proportion of persons' learning experiences is the best devoted to performance of target skills that resembles the target context. This is called the specificity of learning. It holds the best practice which approximates most closely the movement components and environmental conditions of the target skills and target context. However, it is also possible that the learner's previous experiences might transfer negatively to perform or learn new skills. It all sometimes happens in the conceptual elements because in some similar activities, there are few differences that may take place. Just like in badminton and tennis activity, they are different enough when it comes to the strategies in playing and with the use of body parts. Specifically, the wrist. In badminton, the player usually uses the flexible wrist to hit the shuttlecock, while in tennis, it requires a firm wrist in order to hit the ball and gain points. In this situation, the past experiences in badminton could lead the negative transfer of experiences towards the skills of tennis. In general, in performing the conceptual elements, the learners are susceptible to negative influence of prior learning and suggest that motor and perceptual elements is the best element that could lead the positive influence that help the practitioner minimize the potential problem in learning target skills.
Abilities refers to a general trait or capacity of an individual. This one should be acquired to achieve a goal. The higher level of abilities acquired, the more you become closer to success. Many believe that abilities can be improved by doing various drills, but unfortunately, evidences suggest that exercise like giving a drill do little more than improve people's performance of the drill themselves. Meaning, after doing a drill, you didn't improve your ability that much. Instead, you've learned a lot about how the drill must done. For example, your coach used eyes movements exercise to improve your vision. At the end, you just learn how to done the mentioned exercise instead of improving your ability.
And now let's proceed to the stages of learning. When we say stages of learning, this is a relatively distinct and sequential phases in the learning process. We have three stages. Those are the verbal cognitive stage, the motor stage, and the autonomous stage. First, the verbal cognitive stage. In this stage, you might see yourself observing the nature of one certain activity. Like in my case, as a former volleyball player, at first I have observed the other players or the experts in how to do it or to play it. I was able also to learn the uses of every equipment, strategies to get a point, and also the violations. Nevertheless, I have also made the trial and errors. In the beginning of my journey in volleyball, I have encountered the clumsiness, inefficiency, and ineffectiveness. I was also error-ridden. For the second stage, we have the motor stage. In this stage, learners' progress is visible. They know how to solve strategic or cognitive challenges. They also achieve general idea about movements on how to organize or use it in an effective way. Through a lot of practicing in my case in volleyball, I was able to manage my receiving skills, observing, and spiking. I acquired often errors, but I have gained particular knowledge on how to make it better on my next attempts. On the other hand, learners also demonstrate increased automaticity in their sensory analysis of environmental patterns. Like the footwalk, information seems spontaneous for me to demonstrate without confusions. Meanwhile, I am confident and I know how to detect my weaknesses and shortcomings, but I am eager to make it right on the next attempt. So the last stage, but not the least, which is the autonomous stage. In this final stage, learners are able to produce their actions almost automatically with little or no attention. Meanwhile, I have reached this stage where everything becomes normal or every skill is under control. I was able to receive the ball effectively, spike through the net, and serve with no service errors. Everything is under control, and I have mastered every skills. I sought less attentions from the experts and often complimented for the achievement. However, we have two types of skills. Those are the closed skills, which is performed in an environment that is predictable or stationary and that allows performers to plan their movements. On the other hand, the open skills, which is performed in an environment that is unpredictable or in motion and requires performers to adapt their movements in response to dynamic properties of the environment. Nonetheless, I am not satisfied on what I have acquired, so I pushed again into another stage. There were times that I have kept asking myself if I can do this or not, and I also seek for motivations and experts' advices. However, my determinations pushed me to upgrade through practicing. Before I end, I would like to relay my personal conclusions. As what we have learned previously, skill is a product of practice. If you want to be a better performer, then practice a lot. Learn from your mistakes, because practice will serve as the ticket to enter autonomous stage and to be a skilled performer. Thank you.
Assessing progress. In this, the practitioners will know how much the learners made to reach the intended goal. And to conduct effective assessments, practitioners should find or identify valid indicators of skills, obtain observable products of learning, and determine when and how often to assess progress. This is not just for practitioners but also for us, learners. Learners are required to showcase what they got for them to know their capabilities and in what aspects of practices they need to improve.